Lou Thesz successfully defended his World Heavyweight Championship.
Rogers strut.
Kowalski's got him right where he wants him.
Dory Funk Jr. wanting that World Heavyweight Championship.
10 pounds of pure gold.
Simon Felder's Dusty Rhodes has just become the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion.
Presenting the greatest organization in wrestling history.
We always deliver on our promises at the National Wrestling Alliance.
Yeah, was pretty hard, and look at what are you going to work now? Oh!
Hey everybody, it's Durger Time, and thank you for joining me for Season 3 of Billy Corgan's NWA. We are back. No, it's not dead. Much to the fears of people, because we said we were going to have a small hiatus as we kind of updated things, and that small hiatus turned into a much bigger hiatus. So, at the end of August, we stopped this save. We had a season finale with a pretty big win, with Ace Austin becoming the champion, actually a dual champion. We had Eddie Kingston having a grudge match with Brian Pillman Jr., who said that he would need to leave the company if he didn't win it. So some big moments, right? And then we took a break, and it was a good thematic end for our show. And we were supposed to come back in like a couple weeks, and a couple weeks turned into a couple months. As a couple months turned into like half a year. Really what happened was we were having difficulties updating the save. So what I did was, what I wanted to do in between was really take that break to tweak and modify the database. Transfer things over, make sure the roster changes around the world that I was interested in, they were basically set right, make sure that the releases were up to date. And also I wanted to transfer to a new database, because we were using the beta edition of Real World Chronicles all the way back in May 2020, which essentially was an incomplete, rough version of the Real World Chronicles that was transferred and ported over from 2016. And it just was missing the bells and whistles that the mod has now. It is a fantastic mod. Definitely, I think personally, the best real world mod out there. Not without its issues, but no mod is perfect. And it was missing a lot of that, missing a lot of balance, missing a lot of nuance, missing a lot of just little things that they didn't know about, because unfortunately the developers of the game never gave like a pre-release edition. A lot of games that have a big mod scene, and I would consider TEW to be a mod-centric game, right? Something like your Paradox Interactive games are also another good example of that. They tend to release a version early to beta test, specifically for mod makers, so that they can develop the mods early, because they know how essential they are to the playability of the game. And you can't, rush out a release. You kind of have to give it some time. They didn't do that with TEW, obviously. So they had to kind of rush out a beta test live, and that's what we were playing on, because we didn't want to not play right away. So there's just imbalance issues. So I moved it over to, I believe this is the November edition of the save. There was some little tweaks I had to do, but there's a lot of things about this version that I'm really happy about, and a lot of changes that come with it that's going to make the save a little more interesting. Now, let's start with the world changes that make our predicament here in Season 3. Now, we're starting in January 2022, and we're going to have a in-story time skip, right? So, in story, the NWA shut down, very much like how Chikara shut down for like 6 months, for like pandemic-related reasons here and stuff like that, But it's going to have a comeback in a big way, and it has this first major event after the show comes back on called Down But Not Out. And there's going to be some changes to the story, because the fact that they had this 6-month hiatus, just like how we had one in the real world. Now, really, they had a longer hiatus in this. They had like a year hiatus. So that's a little bit different. Now, what's going on in the world that makes this a little bit different? Well, one of the things that is probably the first that we've added is because we're having a more up-to-date save, we have the Forbidden Door, which is the alliance, the loose alliance between Impact, All Elite, and New Japan. That also means that our alliance is different because we don't have Impact in there. And story-wise, we're kind of saying that basically over that year, things changed, right? So, if we come into our alliance, there's a couple things that are a little bit different for us. First, we're no longer just a trading alliance. We are a full-fledged alliance. Essentially, during that year that we were off, essentially, almost a year, we have reformed the actual core National Wrestling Alliance. It's no longer just a trading agreement, because a trading agreement in 2022 is worthless. More companies than ever, unless you're WWE, are having the majority of their roster allowed to work everywhere, right? There are some people that are off the table, but not a lot. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So instead, what the NWA used to be was a territorial public alliance. And that's what we set it at. So we didn't set it at as a territory because the world of territories no longer exists, but we are a public alliance. And what that means is that we share our fortunes with each other. We don't share our money, I should say, our good fortunes. We're not a consortium where we're not all putting into the same hopper, but our momentum and our failures reflect upon each other. So we're going to have to be very careful about who we let into the membership. We want to grow, but basically every person that is joining is representing the NWA at this point in some capacity. That also means that we're going to change our alliance titles, and we have to make a decision on what we want that to look like, right? So that's going to be a little interesting and a little bit different. And we'll go into that later. It's not important now. So right now, we've stripped it down. We could add more in, but right now we wanted to go to the bare essentials, which are the two companies we own, 01, which is going to be our international outreach for the NWA. Us, of course. Championship Wrestling from Philadelphia, which, as you remember, was once CZW, but was bought and rebranded by us. And our sister company, essentially, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, who for a very long time was essentially the NWA, sort of the outreach of it. Now, we don't really have to worry about trading with these guys, because and that was really one of the changes we had, is that we realized that we don't really need a trading agreement. What we really need is a public agreement, something that we can help grow and foster the NWA, so that as we build, we become something special and something different, something that shares the success with each other. Now, the reason why the world's a little bit different is because if we go into companies, we'll find that in these more modern, up-to-date saves, most companies have just general written non-exclusive agreements, because the landscape in 2021 and 2022 is very much different. As we know, wrestlers are traveling everywhere, right? If you're an AEW wrestler, for the most part, you're probably wrestling in AEW. You might be wrestling in GCW. You might be wrestling in your home territories. You might be doing whatever, right? You're going through the whole motions. Almost every wrestler that roster does that. Impact, not that dissimilar, as long as they're not on TV. New Japan, pretty much similar if they can get out of the country, right? AAA, pretty much everywhere. Everywhere but WWE is pretty much locked down. One of the few companies that was really locked down for a bit was Ring of Honor, who had a very traditional exclusive contract system. But Ring of Honor is in a very different shape right now. As we see, they still exist, but they have nobody in their roster. That's because at the end of December, they let go of all of their contracts. And while we can't really simulate the hiatus, I mean, we could, but it's not as interesting. Instead, we've given them a small debt, not a massive one, but a substantial one more than we can pay off for them. And all of their roster, except for their home staff, their bookers, their announced team, stuff like that, they're all gone, right? Delirious still there's booker, Joe Koff's still owning it. What they do, who they decide to hire, and how they do that is going to be up to them. Something we're going to be watching closely. But all of their rosters are out on the market. Impact, if you were to look at their rosters, you're going to find a very similar situation. You'll find most of these guys are actually available to talk to. There's a lot of written contracts, but not a lot of exclusives anymore. Because when the save was transferred over, there was only exclusive written or PPA. And that's not really a realistic situation anymore, right? So there are still a few, but most people in Impact are available to grab. Same thing with AEW. Most of the people that are in this company are in written, non-exclusive contracts. Some are because they're in developmental, right? But like people like Adam Cole are just in a written contract. If they want to work elsewhere, they can, right? Some people are not. Like Hangman Page is exclusive, right? But most are actually under a non-exclusive contract. Not everybody, but a surprising amount of people are available. Bryan Danielson. So this leads us to CM Punk is, I think, exclusive, right? Cody Rhodes is an exclusive, unfortunately. I would love to bring Cody Rhodes back as champion. You know me. But so we have a lot of... Jon Moxley is not exclusive, right? He's just on a written contract. If we can afford him, Jungle Boy is, though. So there's a half and half kind of situation. It makes it a little interesting because there's a lot more options here for us to bring people in non-exclusive contracts. Now, because of that, most of our contracts are just written. We have a couple exclusives, but not a lot. That was pretty much a holdover from how we had it in the last save. Some people we altered their contracts because they're still working elsewhere. In this update, instead of removing them, I just moved them back down to a non-exclusive contract. And what we'll do is we'll at some point try to bid them out into an exclusive again. So we made some changes there. Nothing dramatic. In terms of titles, everything should be basically the same, except for some reason these aren't set right. We'll do that real quick. These should be... Take them. These should be our champions. Our women's should be... we had Heidi Lovelace, who I always preferred that name, but after hearing an interview and how much she apparently hated that name, I decided to go with an interesting alternate. Instead of Ruby Soho, a name that I don't like that much at all. She had a fondness to the name Ramona, and I thought the blending of her preference with her past and making it Ramona Riot has a nice alliterative quality. So in the NWA, that is who she is. Kind of a cool, different thing for us there. Now, one thing we have to do before we really get into this show here is we have no television contract. Mav TV was on a 3-month limit. We've now exceeded that, so we now no longer have a TV show contract. We no longer have an event contract either, but we're probably just going to do Fight. So we do need to look at broadcasting and see who we can actually get for us here. So, view broadcasters, we probably want terrestrial, commercial, if possible. But we could take cable. And what we want is, well, actually, let's see everybody that would cover us. So MAV TV would take us again. We wanted to upgrade either to a better time slot or a larger coverage. And I'd prefer a larger coverage. Something like Pop would do it. Now, Pop is a commercial cable network, so it's not as good as terrestrial, but we'd be willing to do it. Is there any terrestrial that is willing to talk to? We don't want free to air because we need some money. We don't want internet subscription because it's just too small. We're fine with that for pay-per-view if we need to. Commercial, free to air cable, commercial terrestrial, but it's very small and only in England, which, you know, is an option for if we want to run that Ion commercial cable. I think Pop might be our best shot. I don't know what Pop runs, but they're a larger promotion. They're available all throughout the United States. We want a new deal for television shows. Oh, interesting. They're longer than they're willing to allow. They're only willing to allow a 1 hour show versus MAV. No. So we're going to have to make. That's interesting because I like the 1.5 hour show. Is there anyone that's willing to do that for us? Let's look at cable commercial. And we'll go through the whole set and just see. So, Ion's willing to. They're very small, though. They're about the same size as MAV TV. MAV currently has Championship Wrestling on. Pop would be better. Buff TV. I don't even think Tough TV exists anymore. Tough would be willing to, but again, tiny, not really what we're looking for. So if we want to play ball, here's what we're going to do real quick. We're going to check. We're going to modify it, and we will say 1 hour. I'm assuming if they said longer. I don't think if we did longer, it's going to work. I doubt it's just a weirdness of like who does a 2.5 hour show kind of thing. I'm assuming it's just no one is interested in that long of a show. Yeah, they're not. So Pop would say, we can take you, but it needs to be an hour. That's the only time slot we have. Can we work an hour? Yeah, we can. I don't like it as much, but we can do it. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. It's shorter matches. It's less matches. But it's doable. We can work around it if we need to. And we have to be smarter about our roster. Now, we have 45 wrestlers, and I do have some more contracts on the way. So we do have to balance that. But typically for TV shows, we're a little more lenient. We do have the dreaded left off show penalty. So that is a potential problem for us. New deal. So they are willing to do that. So they're not interested in a deal that long. That's fine. They're interested in a 3, 6, or 9 month. I would prefer the least amount of time possible. Their quality expectation for late evening is way off what I think we can do. Late night 49 is possible, but we're going to be going head to head with SmackDown, Rampage, and Rampage and Rampage apparently, because I know these are broken up into the quarter hours because that's going to affect our show here. Afternoon be 39. In which we have to just deal with SmackDown. I guess the beginning is a SmackDown, And then that's not that bad. Early evening, 55 is tough. 50. So they would be fine with afternoon. I'm sure they'd be fine with graveyard. I think afternoon's fine. 39 we should easily be able to cover. What is... Aren't happy and to make up for it. Let's see. Are you willing to do 35? Okay, so 35% to us. We wouldn't have to pay anything. If we went to 40, we'd have to pay $22,000 a show. That's absolutely ridiculous. So, I don't think that's that bad for 3 months. Afternoon time slot's not the best, but it's a larger station than we were on in the same time slot, and the expectation of quality is low enough that I think we can hurdle over that with no problem. So I'm fine with that for now. Let's go ahead and take that 3-month contract. I don't think that's going to be an issue whatsoever. And we have 4 days to put on a show. So let's go ahead and let's head on over to our first show of 2022 with NWA Power. All right, our first show ready to go. We do have some backstage incidents, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. Ezekiel Crowley and Chris Hero have something going on. They were formerly a tag team, so maybe just friendship? Yep. Passing on tips, Chris Hero is to his protege Ezekiel Crowley. Again, already happy with seeing more backstage incidents. I did soup up some of the relationships a bit more, and probably will still continue to do so. Pretty much anybody that I hire, I'm going to do another pass on their attributes, because I think all mods need more attributes, and I know that's way too much to ask for the mod makers to do. So sometimes I'll go through and make sure I feel like they really represent the character of that person. In this case, obviously, Chris Hero has a protege relationship with Tommy End here. Always nice to see. We have no issues right now, so we will simply meddle. And I think having Chris Hero find a friendship with somebody else would always be good. No effect, that's fine. For the show, we're going to be in the Southeast. We are going to go to the NWA Soundstage, the Georgia Public Broadcasting Arena. We have the real one here for $200. This is the recreation of ours, which we will take. Since we own it, that is always an advantage. And we'll be able to get a little bit more people in there. We're currently expecting 661 fans. So we have a show to put on for the, I was about to say the new era. I guess it is the new era of the NWA for us. Our return show, we only have an hour, so we have to be careful. We are just playing on Classic Balanced in terms of our product, so that was kind of the decision that we had ended up making after playing around with those products, that this is probably the best for us. In which case, all we really need to do is to have storylines, further one, and have one show being aimed at storytelling. We could always adjust it later, but the last time we adjusted it, it wasn't as interesting, I should say. So I'm not super concerned about our product right now. We're just going to put on a show. We only have 60 minutes to do it on. That part's going to be tough, so let's see what we can do out of it, and I'll catch you guys on the flip. Alright guys, we are back for our first show of Power. Boy, I hate booking 1 hour, but we made it work, and we did what we needed to do. We have a pretty good show. We start some new storylines. We begin some things. Hopefully, we continue some interesting things, but twist things up. I'm really happy with how the show came out. So let's go ahead, without any further ado, let's start our new Power of 2022 and check out what the future of NWA looks like. So we start the show off with a vignette showing a lot of different people. This is a video package that starts the show and kind of is like a documentary style, showing, it's like a 5-minute video showing the major events of the NWA. It shows, all the major champions and stuff. It goes, we were on top of the world. The NWA was back, revitalized, ready to take on an industry it helped create. And Jeff Jarrett, our GM, is narrating this video. There's highlight reels that show Eddie Kingston challenging Pillman Jr. with a loser leaves town match. Shows Ace Austin holding up his 2 titles in celebration of his win. We see our tag champions, Akam and Razor, powerbombing everybody as a show of dominance. All these clips showing up from the last year. It jumps to a newsreel, then talking about the pandemic. The music gets a little somber, and then local news video in Georgia talks about increased rates and GBD studio being closed down where they film. More sad music plays. You see Billy Corgan looking very frustrated and sad, looking through papers. Looks like he's trying to find a way to make it work, and he can't. There's concerned images of wrestlers backstage, kind of setting up that narrative of like, where have they been for a year? And we've kind of said that this is what happened, right? Jarrett continues in the narration, says, it was taken all away. It looked like it was the end for the NWA. We have more news clips saying that Jeff Jarrett's new financial firm, Global Force Finance, has bought a majority stake in the NWA. And we show clips of the YouTube wrestling shows out there. You're wrestling with regrets and going in Raws and stuff like that, all talking about that NWA's announced that it's coming back big in 2022 and it's kept all the roster, and everyone's excited. And Jarrett says, but the thing is, you can't keep down the NWA. So we got some big things. They've closed for a year. Jeff Jarrett has a new financial firm, and he's bought majority stake in the company. Remember, he was just a GM. He was trying to make a play, and it looks like during the pandemic, he somehow made a big play and got the money to basically buy out Billy Corgan. This is no longer Billy Corgan's NWA. This is essentially Jeff Jarrett's NWA. And we start the show with Jeff Jarrett in the ring. We see the silhouette of a cowboy-hatted man. We know who this is. It's dark. It's dim. Lights come up. We see Jeff Jarrett on hard cam, and the audience cheers. And he goes, this company, it has history for me. You might not think it, but it has true personal stakes. I know you all think I'm just a grifter, some carny, but it's true. My pop helped run this when it was on its lowest point, kept it alive. His dad did that too. The NWA is just as much a Jarrett legacy as it is a wrestling legacy. It gave my family a lot, but it took a lot away too. That's the kind of price that you have to pay for heritage, for prestige. You all heard the news. There's a new owner in town. No longer just a GM. After some successful moves on the crypto market, I was able to finance this company and save it. I'd like you all to welcome to Jeff Jarrett's National Wrestling Alliance. The crowd's a little less warm to that as he's clearly healing it up a little bit. But now I'm gonna make a promise. Know how you all feel about me. I'm gonna try to run a very fair and respectful business. One that respects the titles. One that respects the workers. One that respects the honor of the fight. So we will start tonight with a fair match. Been away for a while, and we had to determine a number one contender. And I think the best way to do that was a battle royal randomly decided by lot number. May the best man win, and the winner will face our champion, Ace Austin, at our first pay-per-view back. Down, but not out. So it sounds like Jeff Jarrett's turned a new leaf. He's going to take this business very reasonably. He's going to be fair and honest and by the book. and not a carny grifter bastard. So this is great. This is very different from the Jeff Jarrett that we know, and I'm sure this will hold up, obviously. This gets a great segment for 59. And we start to show off pretty okay. Got the crowd buzzing, actually. It was a wild, beat-up match. 10 people challenging for the title, for the ability to get to the title. Anyone can win. Who knows what's going to happen? We got Colt Cabana. We got James Storm. We got Laredo Kid. We got Leo Rush. We got Matthias Breeze, Max Stardom, Nick Aldis, Ron Killings, Warhorse, and Zicky Dice. Matthias Breeze and Zicky Dice do good work early on, doubling up on people, being able to use that Smoking Aces cred to knock out a few people early, knock out Max Stardom, knock out Leo Rush, Laredo Kid. Eventually, we get to a final four: Colt Cabana, Nick Aldis, Matthias Breeze, and Ron Killings. Colt Cabana actually being the... That's wrong. That should not be the final elimination. It actually should be Nick Aldis. For some reason, something got funky on there, as things tend to do. But Ron Killings becomes number one contender for the NWA Championship. We actually find the finals. This is how it's supposed to have happened. Nick Aldis, Warhorse, Ron Killings. At the end, Nick Aldis and Warhorse get distracted fighting on each other on the rope. Ron Killings is able to take that opportunity that they're distracted, do a double clothesline, get both of them out of the rope, and he out of the ring, and he wins the number one contendership shot. From R-Truth to a serious competitor, Ron Killings is going to challenge for the NWA World's Heavyweight title, a belt that he had at one point, and we'll hear more about that probably in later episodes. So, we start the storyline. Well, we advance the storyline for Ace Austin and being the champion here. The Aces of the NWA storyline really starts and progresses, gains heat. Segment goes 48. It does okay. Afterwards, we cut back to Jeff Jarrett again in his office. This is very much a Jeff Jarrett show. He sits in his office. He's behind his desk. Once was Billy Corgan's. And he's treating it like a king's throne. He's deposed the old leader, and he's reveling in his new position. He lights up a cigar, puts his cowboy boots up while talking on a conference call to his finance firm about what they can do with the NWA. And he's kind of halfway in a conversation that we caught him in. He goes, yeah, and I've been thinking, we can make pictures of the belts, NFTs, and we can really start to monetize this. Oh, and a mobile game. Oh, hold on. He hears a knock on the door. I gotta call you back. Door opens, and we see Brian Pillman Jr. returning to the NWA, looking surprisingly humble. His shoulders slacked down. He's hunched over a little bit. Time has been tough. He's not been thrilled with his time away. He was on top of the world. He was supposed to leave. The NWA's closed down. He had nowhere to go. He comes in to talk to Jarrett, and Jarrett really turns the knife on him. He goes, well. Now this is a surprise. The Golden Child has returned. You did me mighty wrong in those last months. You just needed to do as I told you to do, and your ego got in the way. You got some real nerve showing back up after this year. Pillman, humble, quietly, just goes, listen, I know second chances are hard, and I made an ass of myself, but, what do you say? I have nowhere else to go. Jarrett mulls it over and then grins. Always a need for good hands, people that know what need to be done, people that can follow instructions. If you think you can follow instructions, maybe we can accept a place for you here, but you gotta earn it. I had the main event booked tonight as Ricky Starks versus your old pal Kingston. How about instead we make it a tag match? We'll get Kingston's old partner Homicide into the fray. and you can tag with Ricky Starks. See how you do. If your team wins, you're back in my good graces. You can rejoin the NWA. Pillman, determined, lights up, accepts the offer, and we have our main event set. This does a 56. Pretty good. We have a pretty decent call-out segment. Our NWA Women's Champion, Ramona Riot, offers an open challenge tonight for the first show back to anyone who wants to step up for the Women's Championship. It's going to put it on the line. Her punk rock gimmick that we set up gets a great reaction, and her segment does pretty good. 52's, anything above 50 to me is golden, especially with what we need to hit for our rating. And we have the debut of Big Swole, who joins the NWA challenge. Unfortunately, this match is not great, and Big Swole does not get a great rating either. It gets an awful rating. She seemed really off her game. We cooled the crowd a little bit for this match because I figured it would be a little too hot after that last match. Unfortunately, this match is not great. Ramona Riot does defeat Big Swole in 11 minutes with a Heidi Ho and makes defense number 1 of her NWA World Women's title. The match itself gets a abysmal 39. Not great. Afterwards, we save it a little bit with a pretty decent segment. We have her shaking Big Swole's hand and raising up her championship win. She's a fighting champion. She respects the belt. She respects the fight. She believes in honor. The celebration, though, is cut short as Mickie James comes in to the ring with a microphone, squares off with her, and she goes, "Congratulations, Ramona. Nice to see you haven't gotten too soft here last year. You know, that belt you hold, it's important. There is prestige in it. Look at the names who held it. Mildred Brooke, the fabulous Moolah, Mischief, Santana Garrett, Thunder Rosa is here, Serena Deeb. The list of names of former champions, the skill, the importance. There's a long history of talented women who held this belt, strove a path to improve women's wrestling, to represent more. There's not many women's championships out there that mean as much. I would know. I've won a lot of them." Glances at the audience knowingly. "But I have to say, I don't really think you're up for the mustard when I listed those accolades there. You don't really seem like championship material, huh?" And before she can even continue, Ramona just fires with a quick jab at her face, and the two quickly brawl. Mickie James was taken aback. She expected a back and forth, and instead Riot decided to just use her fist to talk. The two have to get broken up as they get completely in a brawl. Mickie James, I believe, is currently Impact Knockouts champion, prestigious character, someone that respects the belt, and clearly has some animosity with Ramona Riot here, feels that maybe she's not suited to be the women's champion. And Ramona is not quick to words, instead quick to fists. And in our main event, we got Outlaw Inc. versus Ricky Starks and Brian Pillman Jr. It's a pretty good match, 55. It's not too bad for us. A 60 for us at this point would be like amazing. So 55 is pretty good. It's a good match. Ricky Starks and Brian Pillman Jr. defeat Outlaw Inc. in 12 minutes. Brian Pillman gets the win, pins Homicide with a tornado DDT. Kingston, though, is head and shoulders of everybody else. Brian Pillman not too far behind. Ricky Starks also not too far behind. But Homicide definitely being the weak link in here, struggling to keep up. We advanced the storyline of the redemption of Brian Pillman Jr. And Jeff Jarrett ringside doing some good work. Got the crowd hotter. Did pretty good, actually. Got us a 55. And we have a aftermath of Pillman Jr. being accepted back into the fold. Jeff Jarrett comes over and celebrates with Pillman and Starks. He lifts up Pillman's hand and then kind of steps away to give him a little bit of a clap. Before Pillman could even react, though, he's shocked, struck from behind, laid down upon the ground. Ricky Starks is there with a steel chair, takes down his own tag team partner immediately, and repeatedly hits him on the back, while Jeff Jarrett laughs maniacally. Before Pillman can even really get up, the Revenant, Jeff Jarrett's two mercs, come out and continue to aid in the beatdown with Ricky Starks. Jeff Jarrett makes an up motion with his thumb like a Roman emperor, and Akam and Razor comply, lifting up Pillman Jr. into a double powerbomb position, waiting for the signal, and Jeff Jarrett turns that thumb down to issue the motion. And Jeff Jarrett, after Jeff Jarrett does that, Akam and Razor just deliver a devastating double powerbomb, so hard that Pillman plops up and down onto the mat, leaving him injured and ruined. Meanwhile, Jarrett pats Starks on the back approvingly, like a father to a son. It looks like there is a new golden boy in the ranks, and Pillman is not it. So we end the show there. Ricky Starks came off very well, and we have an interesting relationship there. We know Starks had previously kind of broken away from the Kingdom, Eddie Kingston's dissolved clan, because he kind of felt that he was more important, right? That he was being held back by Eddie Kingston, and we see that there seems to have been an agreement with Jeff Jarrett and Ricky Starks that maybe Starks' positioning is, in fact, more important. So we end the show with a 57 here. The actual show rating, 49. Not bad, but a little underwhelming. It's difficult with only 1 hour. With one bad match, it really can hurt us. But a 49 should be okay. We had to look at I can't remember what our broadcast rating is. We do have some penalties because we look worse than one rival, but we really can't afford doing anything higher than what we have. NXT's production values are outrageous and are going to hurt us. Overall, though, we increased our popularity. All right, check our mail here real quick. We got some signings and a pay raise request already from Ricky Starks. Yeah, I'll give him the full amount. It's fine. We'll make him happy. He's definitely going to be a staple of our show. Ricky Morton was trying to get the Rock and Roll Express to come in, but apparently not interested. Not interested at all, apparently. Ricky Morton, you're not retired. Okay, interesting. Time to heal issues for Laredo Kid, for Leah Rush. That's fine. And it doesn't look like we have any negatives, so I just want to look at our broadcasting real quick. We only need a 39, so we're well above our metric. We have a lot of wiggle room for a positive show, so that's very good. In terms of broadcast revenue, looks like we're going to make about 1,000 per show, about 2,000 per show. So not that bad, a little under 10,000 maybe after the end of the month there for that. Ticket sales aren't bad. We definitely are going to have I had to do miscellaneous because I had to add our arena that I did not add. So I kind of so our number here is going to be a little bit different. But actually it doesn't look too bad. We'll have to play it by ear and see really how it shakes out. But I suspect that once we get our pay-per-view revenue in, we'll be generally okay. I don't think our finances are going to be that much of an issue. But that was it. A very long episode, but I know it was much waited for. So thank you guys for waiting. What I want to hear from you, your call to action, besides subscribing and liking the video. So that's always helpful. But who should we hire? We have a bunch of new people coming in, but there's a lot of options out there. Who would you like to see join our NWA? Jeff Jarrett's NWA. So let me know what direction you want to see. And we definitely have some surprises. There's definitely a lot of people we just hired that are going to be coming in a big way. You can kind of see some of the names here already that are kind of a bit of a spoiler. But I would like to know who else you would. So definitely a lot of different possibilities and options for us. But anyways, that's it for me today. I will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining me, and welcome back for NWA.